The early morning fog rolled in from Monterey Bay, wrapping the coastal city in its familiar embrace. Inside the warm glow of the Daily Grind coffee shop, Amara Knight hummed along to Erykah Badu's On and On, playing softly through the speakers, her fingers dancing across the espresso machine with practiced precision. The aroma of freshly ground coffee beans mingled with the vanilla notes of her perfume, creating an atmosphere that felt like home. At 24, Amara had mastered the art of making every customer feel special. Her natural curls were pulled back in a neat bun today, revealing the warm glow of her dark skin and the sparkle in her deep brown eyes. She moved with a graceful efficiency behind the counter, turning the mundane task of making coffee into something that looked almost like choreography. "Good morning, sunshine," called out Olivia Martinez, her co-worker and closest friend, as she tied her apron. "Ready for another magical Monday?" Amara's laugh rang through the empty cafe. "When am I not?" She adjusted the fresh pastries in the display case, making sure everything was perfect before the morning rush. "Besides, Mondays have gotten a lot more interesting lately." Olivia raised an eyebrow, a knowing smile playing on her lips. "Oh yes, Mr. 7:30, the incredibly punctual pharmacist with the honey latte addiction." "Silas," Amara corrected automatically, then bit her lip when she realized how quickly she'd spoken his name. "And it's not an addiction, it's appreciation for consistency. Honey, the way you both look at each other when you think no one's watching, that's not about the coffee." Before Amara could respond, the drive-through sensor chimed. Her heart did a little skip. 7:28 a.m. Early as usual, she positioned herself at the window, unconsciously running her hands over her curls. "Good morning. Welcome to the Daily Grind," she said into her headset, though she already knew who it was. "Morning, Amara." Silas Reed's voice came through warm and clear, carrying a smile she could hear. "How's the fog treating you today?" "Like a clingy ex who doesn't know when to leave," she quipped, already starting his usual order. The familiar rhythm of steaming milk and adding honey created a comfortable backdrop to their morning exchange. "Sounds like you speak from experience," he teased, and she could picture him in his car, probably wearing one of his crisp white shirts under a leather jacket, his dark hair slightly tousled, as if he'd run his fingers through it in thought. "Oh, please, I'm the one who does the leaving," Amara shot back, watching the rich espresso stream into the cup. "Usually after they prove they can't handle a woman who knows her own mind." His chuckle was low and appreciative. "And how's that dream of yours coming along? The cafe?" Amara paused for a moment, touched that he remembered. During their brief morning exchanges over the past few months, she'd mentioned her ambition to open her own place, something cozy and eclectic, where people could feel both energized and at peace. "Still in the planning stages, but I'm getting there, one cup of overpriced coffee at a time." The window slid open, and there he was, Silas Reed in the flesh, looking even better than her imagination had suggested. His broad shoulders filled out his jacket perfectly, and those hazel eyes of his held warmth that the morning chill couldn't touch. The sandalwood notes of his cologne drifted in, mixing with the coffee aroma in a way that made her think of comfort and possibility. "It's not overpriced if it comes with the best service in town," he said, his eyes meeting hers as she handed him the cup. Their fingers brushed, sending a familiar spark through her skin. "Flattery will get you everywhere," Amara replied, trying to keep her voice steady despite the flutter in her stomach. "But it won't get you a discount. Worth a try." He took a sip, closing his eyes briefly in appreciation. Perfect as always. Behind her, Amara could practically feel Olivia's gleeful observation of their interaction. She knew she'd be in for some serious teasing later, but she couldn't bring herself to care. "Have a great day, Silas," she said softly, meaning it more than she probably should for a customer interaction. "You too, Amara." He lingered for a moment longer than necessary, as if wanting to say something more. Instead, he gave her one last smile before driving away. Amara watched his car disappear into the fog, her mind already fast-forwarding to tomorrow morning's interaction. It was ridiculous, really, how much these brief exchanges had come to mean to her, how she found herself picking out her outfit each morning with a little more care, how she'd started wearing her favorite vanilla perfume more regularly, how she'd memorized the exact amount of honey he liked in his latte. "Ah, girl," Olivia's voice broke through her reverie. "You've got it bad." "I do not," Amara protested, but her smile betrayed her. "He's just different. Different enough to make you forget about your no dating until I achieve my dreams a rule." The question hit closer to home than Amara wanted to admit. She'd made that promise to herself after watching too many friends put their ambitions on hold for relationships that ultimately didn't last. Her cafe wasn't just a dream. It was her future, her independence, her legacy. She couldn't afford distractions, no matter how handsome they looked in leather jackets or how perfectly they understood her coffee-making skills. "My dreams come first," she said firmly, more to convince herself than Olivia. Besides, he probably just appreciates good coffee. Not everyone is looking for a love story. The morning rush began in earnest then, saving her from further interrogation. As Amara moved through the familiar dance of taking orders and crafting drinks, she tried to push thoughts of Silas Reed to the back of her mind. But every time the drive-through sensor chimed, her heart did a little jump, hoping it might be him again. By the time her lunch break rolled around, Amara had served countless customers, each with their own stories and preferences, but none of them made her pulse quicken, quite like that 7:30 appointment with destiny. Sitting in the small break room, she pulled out her notebook, a weather-beaten journal filled with business plans, recipe ideas, and sketches of her future cafe. The pages were worn from constant reference, the margins filled with calculations and inspiration that struck at odd moments. This was her real love story, she reminded herself, the path to making her dreams reality. Yet as she reviewed her notes, she found herself doodling tiny cups of honey latte in the margins and wondering if some dreams had room for unexpected additions. "Just coffee," she whispered to herself, tracing the outline of her cafe as future logo. "So it's just coffee." But even as she said it, she knew she was lying to herself, because when Silas Reed looked at her through that drive-through window, it felt like so much more than coffee. It felt like possibility, like destiny, like the beginning of something she wasn't sure she was ready for, but couldn't seem to resist. The fog outside had begun to lift, revealing glimpses of the bay beyond. Amara watched the sunlight break through, creating patterns on her notebook page. Perhaps, she thought, some dreams were meant to evolve. Perhaps the real trick wasn't avoiding distractions, but recognizing when a distraction might actually be pointing you towards something even better than what you'd planned. But that was a dangerous thought for a Monday morning. She had orders to fill, customers to serve, and a future to build. Whatever was brewing between her and Silas Reed would have to wait. Yet as she returned to work, she couldn't help but smile, already looking forward to tomorrow's 7:30 a.m. appointment with Destiny. Silas Reed stared at the honey latte on his desk, the familiar warmth seeping through the cup and into his fingers. Her smile lingered in his mind like a photograph he couldn't put down. Even here, surrounded by the sterile white walls of Reed Family Pharmacy, he could still catch the phantom scent of vanilla and coffee that seemed to follow Amara wherever she went. "Earth to Silas," his father's voice cut through his reverie. "These inventory reports won't review themselves." Richard Reed stood in the doorway of Silas's office, his silver-streaked hair and wire-rimmed glasses a mirror of what Silas might look like in 30 years. The family resemblance was striking. Same tall build, same broad shoulders, same serious set to their jaw. But where his father's eyes held unwavering certainty about their path, Silas's contained questions he wasn't sure how to ask. "Sorry, Dad, just going over the natural supplement sales data." Silas pulled up a spreadsheet on his computer, hiding the browser tab where he'd been researching small-batch coffee roasters. "Now they're up 15% from last quarter." His father frowned, crossing his arms. "Alternative medicine is a trend, son. Reed Pharmacy has thrived for 40 years because we stick to what works. Traditional pharmaceuticals, proven methods. But what if we could do both?" Silas leaned forward, passion creeping into his voice despite his attempt to remain casual. "The research on natural alternatives is solid. We could create a wellness section, expand our customer base, and dilute our reputation." Richard shook his head. "Your grandfather built this business on reliability, not chasing fads." The weight of family legacy pressed down on Silas's shoulders like a lead apron. He thought of Amara's eyes lighting up when she talked about her cafe dreams, how she seemed to glow from within when describing her vision. "What would it be like to feel that kind of certainty about your path?" "I'll have the reports on your desk by lunch," Silas said instead of arguing. His father nodded and left, the subtle scent of old spice and disappointment trailing behind him. Alone again, Silas took another sip of his latte. Honey and espresso danced across his tongue, perfectly balanced as always. He'd tried honey lattes at other coffee shops, but none of them came close to Amara's. Maybe it was the way she seemed to pour a bit of her sunlight into every cup she made. His phone buzzed with a text from his mother. "Dinner tonight, your favorite pot roast. Dad mentioned you seem distracted lately." Silas sighed, typing back a quick agreement. In the Reed family, concern manifested as surveillance, love as constant evaluation. Sometimes he wondered if that's why he found such peace in those brief morning moments with Amara. She looked at him like he was just Silas, not the next link in a 40-year chain. The morning rush of customers provided welcome distraction. Silas moved through the pharmacy with practiced efficiency, filling prescriptions while engaging in the small talk that had become second nature. Mrs. Henderson and her arthritis, Mr. Patel's blood pressure check, the Wilson twins' matching ear infections, the rhythm of community care his father had taught him to value. But between each interaction, his mind kept drifting back to the daily grind, to dark curls and bright eyes, and a laugh that made him want to tell terrible jokes just to hear it again. "You're humming?" Linda, the senior pharmacist, observed during their lunch break. "You never hum." Silas hadn't even noticed. "Just a good day, I guess." Linda's knowing look reminded him of his mother's. "Would this good day have anything to do with your new morning routine, the one that has you leaving home 30 minutes earlier than necessary?" Heat crept up his neck. "I like to be prepared for the day." With caffeine and a pretty smile, Linda's eyes twinkled. "I've known you since you were in diapers, Silas Reed. You're about as spontaneous as a tax return. Yet suddenly you're taking the long way to work, drinking fancy coffee instead of the break room sludge. The coffee's better for my stomach," he protested weakly. "Your stomach, right." Linda patted his arm. "Just remember, life's too short to only look at the menu without ordering what you really want." The afternoon brought a steady stream of prescriptions and paperwork, but Silas's thoughts kept circling back to Linda's words. And to Amara, always to Amara. He remembered the first time he'd really noticed her, beyond just appreciating her professional courtesy. It was a rainy Tuesday, and she'd been dancing between orders, moving to music he couldn't hear. There was such joy in her movements, such unself-conscious grace. When she'd handed him his latte, her fingers had been warm despite the cold day, and her smile had felt like stepping into sunlight. Since then, their morning exchanges had become the highlight of his carefully structured days. He found himself cataloguing details about her, how she wore small golden hoops on Mondays, silver studs on Wednesdays, how her laugh had different notes depending on whether she was being polite or genuinely amused, how she'd memorized his order, but still asked sometimes, just to make conversation last a few seconds longer. A knock on his office door startled him from his thoughts. His father stood there again, this time holding a thick folder. "I've been reviewing the succession planning documents," Richard said, placing the folder on Silas's desk. "It's time we started talking seriously about your future here." Silas stared at the folder, its weight suddenly matching the heaviness in his chest. "Dad, I've been thinking—" "Good. That's good," Richard smiled, clearly misinterpreting Silas's hesitation as enthusiasm. Your grandfather would be proud to see you taking this seriously. Reed Pharmacy isn't just a business, it's a legacy. Our family's contribution to this community." The words felt like chains, each one binding him tighter to a future that seemed to be closing in. What if there were other ways to contribute, to grow the business while honoring its history? His father's smile faltered slightly. "We can discuss modest modernization efforts as, of course, within reason." "Right," Silas said quietly. "Within reason." After his father left, Silas opened his phone's photo gallery. He'd never taken a picture of Amara. That would have felt like crossing a line. But he had snapshots of his coffee cups, little moments of brightness captured in cardboard and foam. In one, she'd drawn a tiny heart next to his name. He'd told himself it was just good customer service, but he'd kept the cup for 3 days before finally throwing it away. The afternoon sun slanted through his office window, painting patterns on the succession planning folder. Somewhere across town, Amara was probably still making coffee, still dreaming of her own place. He wondered what she'd think of his inability to voice his own dreams, to challenge the weight of expectations. His phone buzzed again, his mother reminding him about dinner. Silas gathered his things, tucking the folder into his briefcase more out of obligation than intention. As he locked up his office, he caught sight of his reflection in the window. He looked exactly like what everyone expected, the responsible son, the future of Reed Pharmacy, the keeper of tradition. But for the first time in his life, he wasn't sure if that reflection showed who he really was. The drive home took him past the daily grind, The evening crew was cleaning up, but through the windows, he could see lingering customers savoring their drinks, looking comfortable and content. He thought about Amara's dream cafe, how she described wanting to create not just a business but a sanctuary, a place where people could be themselves, nourished by more than just coffee. Maybe that's what she was already doing, one honey latte at a time. Making people, making him, feel seen, feel possible. Silas turned up his car's radio, letting the music wash over him as he headed toward his parents' house. Tomorrow morning couldn't come soon enough. Tomorrow morning, he'd see her again, exchange smiles and small talk through a drive-through window. And maybe, just maybe, he'd find the courage to ask for more than just coffee. But for now, he had a family dinner to attend, expectations to meet, and a folder full of someone else's dreams waiting in his briefcase. The sunset painted Monterey Bay in shades of gold and promise, and somewhere between his carefully planned life and his growing desire for something more, Silas Reed began to understand that some risks were worth taking, even if they came with the taste of honey and the scent of vanilla, served in a paper cup at 7:30 a.m. The Saturday morning farmers' market in Monterey was alive with color and movement. Amara wove through the crowds, her canvas tote bag already heavy with fresh herbs and local honey. The ocean breeze carried the mingled scents of fresh bread, flowers, and grilled street food through the air. She'd come seeking inspiration for new drink recipes. The seasonal specials at the Daily Grind needed refreshing, and she had convinced her manager to let her experiment with local ingredients. But if she was honest with herself, she was also here because standing still meant thinking about him, about the way his voice had softened yesterday morning when he'd said goodbye, about how he'd lingered a moment longer than usual at the window. "These lavender stems are perfect for tea," the vendor was saying, pulling Amara back to the present, "or simple syrup if you're into that sort of thing." "Actually, I was thinking of—" Amara's voice caught in her throat as a familiar cologne drifted past, sandalwood and amber. Her heart skipped before her mind could catch up. "Amara?" She turned, nearly dropping her bag of herbs. Silas stood there, looking different in casual clothes, dark jeans and a soft grey Henley that made him seem more touchable, more real than his usual work attire. His hair was messier than usual, like he'd just rolled out of bed, and something about that detail made her stomach flip. "Silas, She gestured vaguely at her purchases. "Fancy meeting you here. I was just thinking the same thing." His smile was warm, genuine. "Usually I only see you through a window." The vendor watched their interaction with poorly concealed interest, prompting Amara to step away from the stall. Silas fell into step beside her naturally, as if they'd walked together 100 times before. "No honey latte today," she teased, trying to calm her racing pulse. "Thought I'd give you a day off." He glanced at her bag. "Although it looks like you're still working, in a way." "Research and development," she explained, adjusting the bag's strap on her shoulder. "I'm trying to create some new seasonal drinks, something different than the usual pumpkin spice everything. Need a taste tester." The words came out quickly, almost shy. "I mean, I do have some experience with your coffee." Amara's heart did a little dance. "Are you offering your services as a professional beverage critic, more like a devoted fan?" Their eyes met, and the morning bustle of the market seemed to fade away. "I've tried honey lattes at other places, you know. They're never quite the same." "That's because—" Amara started, but was cut off as someone bumped into her from behind. She stumbled forward, and Silas's hands caught her shoulders, steadying her. The touch sent electricity through her skin. "You okay?" His voice was close to her ear, concern mixing with something else in his tone. "Yeah, just—" She straightened up, but his hands lingered for a moment longer than necessary. "Thanks." They stood there, surrounded by the market's energy, but somehow in their own bubble of quiet. Amara could smell his cologne more clearly now, mixed with something that might have been mint toothpaste and morning air. "First, have you had breakfast?" The words tumbled out before she could stop them. "There's this amazing crepe stand around the corner, unless you have somewhere to be—" "No," Silas said quickly, then seemed to catch himself. "I mean, no, I don't have anywhere to be. And yes to breakfast, if you want." The smile that spread across Amara's face felt unstoppable. "Come on then. These are the best crepes in Monterey. Trust me." They wound their way through the market, falling into an easy conversation that felt nothing like their brief drive-through exchanges. Silas told her about growing up in Monterey, about summer days spent at the beach and winter storms watched from his bedroom window. Amara shared stories about her college years in Seattle, where she'd first fallen in love with coffee culture. At the crepe stand, Silas insisted on paying. "You've made me countless perfect lattes. Let me get this one." "Such a gentleman," Amara teased, but her chest felt warm at the gesture. They found a quiet spot near the water to eat, sitting on a low wall with their legs dangling over the edge. The morning sun sparkled on the bay, and seagulls wheeled overhead, hoping for a taste of their breakfast. "So," Silas said, carefully cutting his savory crepe, "tell me more about these seasonal drinks you're planning." Amara's eyes lit up. "Well, I was thinking about combining local honey like the one I just bought, with lavender and maybe a hint of vanilla, something soothing but complex. And then for the more adventurous customers, I'm experimenting with rosemary and orange." She trailed off, noticing the way Silas was watching her. "What?" "Nothing, it's just, you light up when you talk about this stuff. It's nice to see." Heat crept up her neck. "I probably sound ridiculous, getting so excited about coffee combinations." "Not at all." Silas turned to face her more fully. "It's passion. That's never ridiculous. I wish—" He paused, something flickering across his expression. "You wish what?" He seemed to consider his words carefully. "I wish I had that kind of clarity about what I want." The vulnerability in his voice made Amara's heart ache. "The pharmacy. It's not what you wanted. It's complicated." Silas stared out at the water. "It's not that I don't love helping people, being part of the community. I do, but sometimes I wonder if I'm just following a script someone else wrote for me." Amara nodded, understanding all too well. "That's why the cafe means so much to me. It's the first dream that felt completely mine, you know? Not something I should want, or what would make sense, but just mine." Their eyes met again, and this time neither looked away. A seagull landed nearby, eyeing the remains of their crepes hopefully. "Can I tell you something?" Silas asked, his voice soft. "Something I haven't told anyone else?" "Of course. I've been researching natural medicine, alternative treatments, herbal remedies, that sort of thing. I want to modernize the pharmacy, create a wellness center that bridges traditional and alternative approaches. But my father," he shook his head, "he sees it as a betrayal of everything they've built." Without thinking, Amara reached out and touched his hand. His skin was warm against hers, and she felt him start slightly at the contact before relaxing. "That's not a betrayal," she said firmly. "That's evolution, growth. Try telling that to 40 years of tradition." But he smiled slightly, turning his hand to catch her fingers with his. The touch was light, tentative, but it sent sparks racing up Amara's arm. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, hands linked, watching the morning light play on the water. Amara was acutely aware of every point of contact between them, every subtle shift of his fingers against hers. "You know what I think," she finally said, feeling brave. "I think sometimes we need to let ourselves want impossible things, because maybe they're not as impossible as we think." Silas looked at her then, really looked at her, and Amara felt the weight of unspoken words hanging between them. She wondered if he was thinking about the same impossible things she was, about chance meetings becoming something more, about morning coffee rituals turning into morning kisses, about two dreams somehow finding space to grow together. A child's shout from nearby broke the moment, and they both jumped slightly, their hands separating. The market was getting busier now, families and tourists filling the spaces that had been quiet just moments ago. "I should probably—" Silas gestured vaguely toward the parking lot. "Right, yes, me too." Amara gathered her bags, trying not to feel disappointed. "I have to test these recipes before my next shift." They stood awkwardly for a moment, neither quite ready to leave. Finally, Silas spoke. "Thank you. For breakfast, for listening, for everything. Thank you for being my guinea pig." She smiled, trying to keep her voice light. "Although I notice you didn't actually test anything yet." "Well," he said, and there was that softness in his voice again, the one that made her knees weak. "I guess that means we'll have to do this again sometime." "I guess it does." They walked back toward the parking lot together, their steps slower than necessary. At her car, Amara turned to say goodbye, but Silas spoke first. "Amara," his voice was hesitant but determined, Would you like to have dinner with me sometime? Actually plan it, I mean, not just run into each other at the market." Joy bubbled up in her chest, but anxiety followed close behind. This was exactly what she'd promised herself she wouldn't do. Not until the cafe was more than just a dream. But looking at Silas, seeing the hope and nervousness in his eyes, she couldn't bring herself to say no. "I'd like that," she heard herself say. "I'd like that a lot. His smile was brighter than the morning sun. They exchanged phone numbers, their fingers brushing again as they handed phones back and forth. The simple touch felt somehow more intimate than holding hands had earlier. "I'll call you," he promised. "Or I'll see you Monday morning. 7:30, she confirmed, her smile matching his. "Don't be late." As she drove home, her herbs and honey forgotten in the passenger seat, Amara tried to sort through the whirlwind of emotions in her chest. She'd broken her own rule, crossed the line between professional friendship and something more. But somehow, watching Silas grow smaller in her rearview mirror, she couldn't bring herself to regret it. Maybe some rules were meant to be broken. Maybe some dreams had room to grow in unexpected directions. And maybe, just maybe, the taste of destiny came with a hint of honey and the promise of something sweet. No, absolutely not. This isn't right either. Amara stood in front of her closet, surrounded by discarded outfits that told the story of her mounting anxiety. Her bedroom looked like a boutique after a hurricane, with dresses, blouses, and jeans scattered across every surface. She grabbed her phone, dialing Olivia for the third time that evening. "I'm cancelling. I'll tell him I have food poisoning." "Girl, breathe." Olivia's voice was calm but firm. "You've changed clothes more times than a Broadway show. The blue dress was perfect the first time, and it's still perfect now." Amara glanced at the dress in question, a deep midnight blue wrap dress that hugged her curves without being too formal. "But what if you finish that sentence with another, what if I'm coming over there and dressing you myself?" Olivia's laugh softened her words. "He asked you out while you were wearing workout clothes and carrying bags of herbs. Trust me, the blue dress will knock him dead." Looking in the mirror, Amara touched her freshly moisturized curls, which she'd left loose and natural. Her gold earrings caught the light, matching the delicate necklace her grandmother had given her for graduation. "I broke my own rule, Liv. The no dating until the cafe rule. Maybe it was a stupid rule. It wasn't stupid. It was practical." But even as she said it, Amara remembered the way Silas had looked at her at the farmer's market, like she was something precious and unexpected. I don't want to lose focus. Honey, I've watched you make spreadsheets about spreadsheets for that cafe, trust me. Nothing's going to derail that dream. But maybe, just maybe, there's room in your life for more than one dream at a time." A text notification interrupted their conversation. "Silas, I'm downstairs. Take your time. No rush." Amara's heart did a backflip. "He's here." "Oh God, he's here. Then stop talking to me and go get your man." Olivia made kissing noises before hanging up. Taking one last look in the mirror, Amara grabbed her purse and headed downstairs. Each step felt like moving through honey, slow and sweet and slightly terrifying. When she opened the front door, all the air left her lungs at once. Silas stood there in charcoal slacks and a deep green button-down that made his eyes look almost golden in the evening light. He held a small bouquet of wildflowers, and the sight of them, not roses or anything formal, but beautiful local blooms that might have come from the farmer's market, made her heart squeeze. "Wow," he breathed, and the simple word carried enough genuine awe to make her blush. "You look incredible." "Thank you." She accepted the flowers, their fingers brushing. "Ah, these are beautiful. I remembered you saying how much you loved the flower stand at the market." He rubbed the back of his neck, a gesture she was beginning to recognize as a sign of nervousness. "I hope it's not too much." "It's perfect," she assured him, quickly putting the flowers in water. When she returned, he was still looking at her with that mix of admiration and disbelief that made her feel both powerful and vulnerable. The drive to the restaurant was filled with comfortable conversation, interrupted by moments of charged silence, their hands occasionally brushing on the center console. Silas had chosen a small Italian place overlooking the bay, intimate without being overwhelming. "I hope you like Italian," he said as they were seated at a corner table with a view of the sunset. "The owner, Giuseppe, makes his own pasta. I love Italian." Amara smiled, taking in the warm lighting and the sound of soft jazz playing in the background. "Though I have to admit, I half expected you to take me for coffee." Silas laughed, the sound rich and genuine. "I thought about it, but I figured we should branch out. Besides," his eyes twinkled, "I get the best coffee in town every morning already." Their waiter arrived with menus and wine recommendations, and soon they fell into an easy rhythm of sharing dishes and stories. Silas told her about his college years studying pharmacy, about the pressure of being the only son in a family of healthcare professionals. Amara shared stories about growing up in a house full of music, about her mother's jazz collection, and her father's old vinyl records. That's why you always have music playing at work, Silas noted, twirling pasta on his fork. I've noticed you move differently depending on what song is on. The fact that he'd noticed such a detail made Amara's chest warm. You've been paying attention to everything about you, he admitted softly. Probably more than I should have, given that I was just supposed to be getting coffee, and I was just supposed to be making it. She took a sip of wine, feeling bold. But here we are, he agreed, his eyes holding hers across the table, breaking all sorts of rules. The conversation flowed as naturally as the wine, touching on everything from their favorite books to their childhood dreams. Amara found herself telling him about her first attempts at making coffee, disasters that had nearly gotten her fired from her first barista job. But you kept at it, Silas observed. That's what I admire about you. You don't give up on what you want. Is that what made you finally ask me out? She teased. My persistence with coffee art. No, he said seriously. It was the way you treat every customer like they matter, the way you remember their names, their stories. You make everyone feel special, but not in a fake way. You genuinely care. Amara felt herself blushing again. It's not hard to care about people who become part of your daily life, like a pharmacist who orders the same drink every morning. Especially persistent pharmacists with a honey addiction, she agreed, making him laugh. As their plates were cleared, Silas grew quieter, more thoughtful. Can I tell you something? Of course. Yesterday, my father gave me the final partnership agreement for the pharmacy. He wants me to sign it next week, make it official that I'll take over when he retires. Amara reached across the table, taking his hand. And that's not what you want. I want to help people. I want to be part of the community, but I want to do it my way. He interlaced their fingers, drawing strength from the contact. I have all these ideas for modernizing the practice, incorporating natural medicine, creating a true wellness center, but every time I try to bring it up, they shut you down, she finished softly. Exactly. And I know I should stand up for my vision, but they're family, Amara understood, and disappointing family feels like failing. Yes. He looked at her with something like wonder. How do you do that? Just understand. Because dreams are complicated, she said simply, especially when they don't match other people's expectations. Their dessert arrived. A shared tiramisu that was more excuse to linger than necessity. As they talked, their hands remained linked on the table, thumbs brushing occasionally in a way that sent shivers up Amara's spine. The drive home felt both too short and endless, filled with the kind of tension that comes from knowing a perfect evening is coming to an end. When they reached her door, Silas walked her up, their steps slow and reluctant. Thank you for tonight, Amara said, turning to face him. It was perfect, he suggested, stepping closer. Better than perfect. The air between them crackled with possibility. Silas reached up, tucking a curl behind her ear with infinite gentleness. His hand lingered on her cheek, and Amara found herself leaning into the touch. Amara, he whispered, his voice rough with emotion. I really want to kiss you right now. Her heart thundered in her chest. What's stopping you? He leaned down, and the first brush of his lips against hers was soft, questioning. Amara rose up on her toes, deepening the kiss, and felt his other hand come to rest on her waist, pulling her closer. He tasted like tiramisu and promises, and she could feel his heart racing where their chests pressed together. When they finally parted, both slightly breathless, Silas rested his forehead against hers. I've wanted to do that since the first morning you smiled at me through that window. Me too, she admitted, her fingers playing with the collar of his shirt, even though I tried not to. Any regrets? His thumb traced her cheekbone, sending sparks across her skin. Not one. She kissed him again, briefly but with feeling. Though I might regret it in the morning when I have to make your coffee without getting distracted. His laugh was low and warm. I'll try to be professional. Liar. They stood there for a moment longer, trading soft kisses and softer words, neither wanting the evening to end. Finally, Amara stepped back, though she kept hold of his hand. Monday morning, she asked, echoing their usual goodbye. 7:30, he confirmed, bringing their joined hands to his lips. I wouldn't miss it for the world. As she watched him drive away, Amara touched her lips, still tingling from his kisses. Her phone buzzed, Olivia demanding details, but for a moment she just stood there, letting herself feel everything. The joy, the fear, the wild hope that maybe, just maybe, some dreams were worth the risk of falling. Tomorrow she would worry about rules and plans and practical considerations, but tonight She let herself believe in the taste of tiramisu, the scent of sandalwood, and the possibility that love and dreams didn't have to be separate things at all. Monday morning arrived with a mix of fog and anticipation. Amara had been at work since 6 a.m., reorganizing things that didn't need reorganizing, checking the espresso machine twice, and humming along to Norah Jones's "Come Away With Me," playing softly through the speakers. "Someone's in a good mood," Olivia observed, watching Amara polish the already spotless counter. "I take it Saturday night went well?" The memory of Silas's kisses made Amara's cheeks warm. "It was nice. Nice." Olivia raised an eyebrow. "You've been floating around here like you're starring in your own romantic comedy, and all I get is nice." Before Amara could respond, the morning supervisor, Marcus, emerged from the back office with a serious expression. "Team meeting, 5 minutes? Important announcement?" Amara's stomach dropped. Marcus never called impromptu meetings unless something was wrong. She and Olivia exchanged worried glances as they gathered with the rest of the morning crew. "Corporate visited yesterday," Marcus began without preamble. "They've decided to implement some changes. Starting next week, the daily grind will be transitioning to a new automated ordering system at the drive-thru. Customers will place orders through a touchscreen, and we'll focus on efficiency and speed of service." The words hit Amara like ice water. "But what about customer connection? The regulars who come specifically for the personal touch?" Marcus's expression softened slightly. "I know, Amara, but this is happening. They're installing the system this weekend. So we're just supposed to be what? Coffee robots?" Olivia's voice was sharp. "You'll still interact during pickup," Marcus assured them, "but the ordering process will be streamlined. Corporate believes this will increase profits and reduce wait times." The meeting continued, but Amara barely heard the rest. All she could think about was Silas, about their morning conversations that had slowly built something beautiful, about all her regulars who shared pieces of their lives through the window each day. As if summoned by her thoughts, the drive-through sensor chimed. 7:30 a.m. "I've got this one," she told Olivia, trying to keep her voice steady. Through the window, she could see Silas's car approaching, and her heart did its usual flutter despite the heaviness in her chest. "Good morning," she said, as the window slid open, forcing brightness into her tone. "Good morning, beautiful." Silas's smile faltered when he saw her expression. "Everything okay?" "Your usual." She was already making it, grateful for the familiar routine. "Amara." His voice was soft with concern. "What's wrong?" She glanced back at Marcus, who was busy training someone on the new register system. "They're automating the drive-through. Starting next week, customers will order through a touchscreen." "What? But that's—" Silas cut himself off as another car pulled up behind him. "When do you get off work?" 2. "Meet me at the pier. We can talk properly." Amara nodded, handing him his latte. Their fingers brushed, and the touch sent its usual electricity through her skin, but now tinged with urgency. "I'll be there." The rest of her shift passed in a blur of orders and fake smiles. Even Olivia's attempts at cheering her up fell flat. This job had been more than just a stepping stone to her own cafe. It had been where she learned to connect with people, to make every cup of coffee an expression of care. At exactly 2 o'clock, Amara changed out of her work clothes and headed to the pier. Silas was already there, leaning against the railing and watching the waves. He'd clearly come straight from the pharmacy, his white coat exchanged for a light jacket against the ocean breeze. "Hey," she said softly, joining him at the railing. Instead of responding, he pulled her into a tight hug. Amara melted into his embrace, breathing in his familiar scent and letting some of her tension ease. "Tell me everything," he murmured into her hair. So she did. About the corporate decision, about her fears of losing the human connection that made the job meaningful, about how it felt like the universe was mocking her dreams of creating a place where people felt truly welcomed. "It's not just about the automation," she admitted, pulling back to look at him. "Shaz, it's about what it represents. These big companies thinking that efficiency matters more than community. That's exactly what I don't want my cafe to become." Silas was quiet for a moment, his thumb tracing circles on her hand. "You know what this reminds me of? What my father's been pushing at the pharmacy. All these systems and protocols that treat patients like numbers instead of people. What are we going to do?" Amara leaned her head against his shoulder. "Well," he said slowly, "I've been thinking about what you said, about standing up for our visions." She lifted her head to look at him. "Oh, I'm not signing the partnership agreement. Not as it stands." His jaw was set with determination. I'm going to present my plan for modernizing the pharmacy, not just with technology, but with a real focus on holistic care, natural remedies alongside traditional medicine, personal attention alongside efficiency. Silas, that's wonderful. Amara squeezed his hand. But what about your father? He might not like it. He probably won't, at first, but I have to try. He turned to face her fully. And you know what gave me the courage? Watching you, seeing how clear you are about your vision for your cafe. It made me realize that sometimes the hardest part of having a dream is being brave enough to fight for it. Amara felt tears prick at her eyes. I don't feel very brave right now. Are you kidding? Silas cupped her face in his hands. You're the bravest person I know. Look at you. You could just accept this change or keep your head down, play it safe, but instead, you're upset because it goes against everything you believe about how people should be treated. That's not just passion, Amara. That's integrity. She leaned into his touch, letting his words wash over her. Maybe this is a sign that it's time to stop waiting for the perfect moment to start working on my cafe. Maybe there is no perfect moment. What do you mean? There's a small business competition coming up, the Monterey Bay Business Innovation Challenge. First prize is a significant investment fund and a mentorship program. She took a deep breath. DFC, I've had the application saved on my laptop for weeks, but I kept telling myself I wasn't ready. And now, I think I need to stop being afraid of failing and start being afraid of never trying. She met his eyes. Will you help me? Look over my business plan. I mean, you have experience with running a successful business, and His kiss cut off her words. It was different from their goodnight kisses, deeper, more urgent, full of pride and promise and possibility. Is that a yes? She asked when they finally parted, slightly breathless. That's a hell yes, he grinned, on one condition. What's that? You help me refine my presentation for the pharmacy modernization plan. Your eye for customer experience would be invaluable. Deal. She sealed it with another kiss, this one softer, but no less meaningful. They spent the rest of the afternoon on the pier, brainstorming ideas and sharing dreams. Silas's natural business sense helped Amara refine her financial projections, while her innovative approach to customer service inspired new elements for his pharmacy plan. As the sun began to set, casting long golden shadows across the water, Amara felt something shift inside her. The morning's despair had transformed into determination. Maybe losing the personal touch at the daily grind wasn't an ending, but a beginning, a push toward creating something even better. What are you thinking about? Silas asked, noticing her thoughtful expression. About how sometimes the things that seem like obstacles are actually opportunities in disguise. She turned to face him. Like how a corporate coffee chain's drive-through window led me to you. His smile was soft in the fading light. And how a strict family pharmacy tradition led me to question everything I thought I knew about success. We're quite a pair, aren't we? She nestled closer as the evening breeze picked up. The rebel barista and the revolutionary pharmacist. Wouldn't have it any other way. He wrapped his arm around her shoulders. Though I have to ask, when the automation starts, will I still get my honey latte made with extra love? Always, she promised, tilting her face up to kiss him. Some things even corporate can't automate. As they walked back to their cars, hands linked and hearts full of plans, Amara felt a new kind of certainty settling in her chest. Maybe love wasn't a distraction from her dreams after all. Maybe it was the missing ingredient, like honey in a latte, making everything sweeter, richer, more complete. Tomorrow morning, Silas asked as they reached her car. 7:30, she confirmed. While we still can. His goodbye kiss tasted like promise and possibility, like dreams taking shape in the golden California light. And as Amara drove home, she realized that sometimes the best things in life came not from careful planning, but from being brave enough to let your heart lead the way. The evening light filtered through the windows of Silas's apartment, casting a warm glow over the papers spread across his dining table. Business plans, financial projections, and research documents covered every available surface. In the center of it all sat Amara, her curls piled in a messy bun, wearing one of Silas's oversized sweaters as she pored over her competition entry for the 10th time. What if the projections aren't realistic enough? She chewed her lower lip, scrutinizing the numbers. Maybe I should revise the first-year revenue estimates. Silas looked up from his laptop where he'd been working on his pharmacy presentation. Your numbers are solid, Amara. If anything, they're conservative. He stood, moving behind her chair to massage her tense shoulders. You've done the research. You know your market. She leaned back into his touch, letting out a small sigh. I just want it to be perfect. The competition is in 2 weeks, and you'll be amazing. He pressed a kiss to the top of her head. Take a break. The sundubu jjigae I ordered should be here soon. As if on cue, the doorbell rang. Amara smiled, remembering how she'd introduced Silas to Korean food last week, and he'd become instantly addicted to the spicy tofu stew. It was just one of the many small ways they'd begun weaving themselves into each other's lives over the past 2 weeks. While Silas got the food, Amara's phone buzzed with a text from Olivia. How's the work session going? Actually working, Amara typed back, though she couldn't help smiling at her friend's implication. Some competition prep is no joke. And the fact that you're at his place has nothing to do with those goodnight kisses I keep seeing at your car after closing? Before Amara could respond, Silas returned with the food and 2 bottles of craft beer he'd picked up from a local brewery. Dinner is served, it's Miss Wow, future cafe owner. They cleared a space among the papers, creating a cozy dinner spot on the table. The spicy aroma of the stew filled the air, mingling with the subtle scent of Silas's sandalwood cologne. Oh, Amara suddenly remembered. How did the initial conversation with your dad go? About the presentation? Silas took a long sip of his beer before answering. He's willing to listen, which is more than I expected. Honestly, I think Linda had something to do with it. She's been dropping hints about how other pharmacies are successfully incorporating natural medicine. That's something, right? Amara reached across the table to squeeze his hand. A chance to make your case. Yeah. He interlaced their fingers, his thumb tracing patterns on her skin. I've scheduled the presentation for next Friday. The whole board will be there. My father, the other partners, even my grandfather. Amara's eyes widened. Shall your grandfather's coming? You didn't tell me that. Found out today. Silas's voice was tight with tension. He retired 5 years ago, but he still has significant influence. If I can convince him, then your father might be more open to change. Amara finished. She studied his face, noting the worry lines around his eyes. You've got this, Silas. Your vision for the pharmacy isn't about rejecting tradition. It's about building on it, making it better. He smiled, some of the tension easing from his shoulders. How do you always know exactly what to say? Years of customer service, she teased, then grew serious. No, it's because I see you, the real you, not just the dutiful son or the successful pharmacist, but the man who wants to make a difference in people's lives. Their eyes met across the table, and the air between them grew thick with unspoken feelings. 2 weeks of working side by side, of shared meals and stolen kisses, of supporting each other's dreams, had created something deeper than either had expected. I see you too, Silas said softly. Your strength, your determination, your heart. The way you light up when you talk about your cafe plans, how you remember every regular customer's story, not just their order. Amara felt warmth spread through her chest. Speaking of orders, tomorrow's my last day on drive-thru before the automation starts. Sure you don't want to find a new coffee spot? One with a more personal touch? Never. He lifted their joined hands to his lips, kissing her knuckles. I'll order through 1,000 touchscreens if it means seeing your smile at the window. Smooth talker. But she was smiling, even as her heart ached a little at the thought of losing their morning ritual. They finished dinner and returned to their work. But something had shifted in the atmosphere. Their chairs had moved closer together, shoulders touching as they reviewed documents. Occasionally, Silas would reach over to tuck a stray curl behind Amara's ear, or she would rest her head on his shoulder while reading through his presentation notes. Around midnight, Amara stifled a yawn. I should go. Early shift tomorrow. Stay. The word was soft but clear. Seeing her hesitation, Silas added quickly, just to sleep, it's late and you're tired. I'll take the couch. Amara considered the offer. They hadn't crossed this line yet, but something about tonight, about all the trust and vulnerability they'd shared over their dreams, made it feel right. Okay, but no couch. Your back will kill you before your presentation. His smile was equal parts joy and relief. I'll find you something to sleep in. Minutes later, Amara stood in his bathroom, wearing a soft t-shirt that smelled like him and fell almost to her knees. She'd removed her makeup and let her curls down, feeling strangely vulnerable, but not uncomfortable, when she emerged. Silas had changed into sleep pants and a white t-shirt and was placing a glass of water on the nightstand. I put a new toothbrush on the counter for you, he said, his voice carrying a hint of nervousness that made her heart squeeze with affection. They slid under the covers with careful movements, both hyper-aware of each other's presence. For a moment, they lay there in awkward silence until Amara let out a small laugh. "What's funny?" Silas turned on his side to face her. "Us. Being nervous about sharing a bed when we've been sharing our biggest dreams and fears for weeks." His laugh joined hers, and suddenly the tension dissolved. He opened his arms, and Amara moved into them naturally, fitting against him like she belonged there. His heartbeat under her ear was strong and steady, his fingers gentle as they stroked her back. "Can I tell you something?" she whispered into the darkness. "Anything. I'm scared. Not just about the competition, but about everything. About falling for you while trying to chase my dreams. About possibly failing at both." Silas tightened his arms around her. "I'm scared too, but you know what scares me more? The thought of not trying, of letting fear stop us from seeing where this could go, all of it, the dreams, the plans, us." Amara lifted her head to look at him, finding his eyes in the dim light. When did you get so wise?" "Must be all that overpriced coffee," he teased, then grew serious. "Or maybe it's just you. You make me brave, Amara, brave enough to fight for what I want." She kissed him then, soft and sweet, pouring all her complicated feelings into the gesture. When they parted, she settled back against his chest, letting his steady breathing lull her toward sleep. "Silas," she murmured, already half dreaming. Thank you. For seeing me, for believing in me." His kiss on her forehead was the last thing she felt before drifting off. Always. As sleep claimed them both, their dreams and plans lay scattered across the dining table, waiting for morning. But here, in the quiet darkness, they had found something perhaps even more valuable, a safe harbor, a place where fears could be voiced and hopes could take flight. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. The last day of their morning ritual, more preparation for their respective presentations, the continuing dance of balancing professional dreams with personal happiness. But for now, they slept, wrapped in each other's arms, their hearts beating in sync with the rhythm of possibilities yet to come. Silas adjusted his tie for the third time, staring at his reflection in the pharmacy's bathroom mirror. His presentation was due to start in 20 minutes, and despite hours of preparation, his stomach was in knots. A soft knock at the door was followed by Linda's voice. "Your grandfather just arrived." Taking a deep breath, Silas pulled out his phone to find a message from Amara. "You've got this. Your vision matters. Your voice matters. I believe in you." The simple text steadied him. He thought of their conversation last night, how she'd helped him refine his final talking points over FaceTime until midnight, how she'd made him practice the key parts of his presentation, challenging him with tough questions until his answers flowed naturally. The boardroom was already full when he entered. His father sat at the head of the table, glasses perched on his nose as he reviewed some papers. The other partners, Dr. Mitchell, Dr. Adams, and Mrs. Rodriguez, were engaged in quiet conversation. And there, next to his father, sat Charles Reed, Silas's grandfather, his presence commanding attention despite his retired status. "Shall we begin?" Richard Reed's voice cut through the murmur of conversation. Silas connected his laptop to the projector, and the title slide appeared, "Reed Pharmacy, Bridging Tradition and Innovation, a Vision for the Future." "Good morning," he began, his voice stronger than he expected. "For 40 years, Reed Pharmacy has been a cornerstone of healthcare in Monterey. Today, I want to share a vision that honors that legacy while embracing the future our community needs." As he moved through his presentation, Silas felt his nervousness transform into passion. He shared statistics about the growing demand for natural remedies, presented case studies of successful integrative pharmacies, and outlined his plan for modernizing their services while maintaining their personal touch. "By creating a wellness center within the pharmacy," he explained, pointing to his projected floor plan, "we can offer both traditional pharmaceuticals and evidence-based natural alternatives. Our pharmacists would receive additional training in herbal medicine, allowing us to provide comprehensive counseling." "This sounds expensive," Dr. Mitchell interrupted, "and risky. I've prepared a detailed cost analysis." Silas switched to his financial projections. "Based on market research and consumer trends, we could see a return on investment within 18 months. More importantly, we'd be meeting a growing need in our community." "The community needs reliable medicine," his father said firmly, "not trendy supplements." "With all due respect, Dad, that's not what the data shows." Silas pulled up his survey results. 70% of our current customers already use some form of natural medicine. They're getting it from big box stores or online retailers because we don't offer it. We're not just losing business. We're missing an opportunity to provide educated guidance. Silas makes a valid point, Mrs. Rodriguez noted. My own patients often ask about natural alternatives. Charles, Richard turned to his father. What do you think? The room fell silent as the elder Reed leaned forward. Silas held his breath, remembering all the summers he'd spent in the pharmacy as a child, watching his grandfather counsel patients with a mixture of professional knowledge and personal care. When I started this pharmacy, Charles began slowly, many of my colleagues thought I was foolish to open an independent store when big chains were taking over. They said personal service was outdated, that efficiency was the future. He paused, looking directly at Silas. But I believe that healthcare should be personal, that knowing our patients and understanding their needs was as important as the medicine we provided. Exactly, Richard nodded, which is why we should stick to what works. No, Charles's voice was firm. That's why we should listen to Silas. The room stilled. Silas felt his heart skip. What? Richard stared at his father. The world is changing, Richard. Our patients are changing. What worked 40 years ago, even 20 years ago, isn't enough anymore. Charles smiled at his grandson. Silas isn't suggesting we abandon our principles. He's suggesting we expand them. Meet our community's needs the way we always have, with knowledge, care, and personal attention. But the risk, Dr. Adams began. The greater risk, Charles interrupted, is becoming irrelevant. Letting our commitment to tradition blind us to necessary evolution. He turned to Silas. Tell me, son, what inspired this plan? Silas thought of Amara, of her dedication to making every customer feel valued. I learned, from someone special, that innovation doesn't have to mean losing personal connection, that sometimes change is how we stay true to what matters most. A knowing look crossed his grandfather's face. This someone special, they've helped you see things differently. Yes. Silas felt warmth color his cheeks. She reminds me every day that success isn't just about numbers, it's about impact, about making people's lives better. Charles nodded, then addressed the room. I move that we approve Silas's proposal for a pilot program, 3 months to prove the concept, with metrics for success clearly defined. Dad. Richard started to protest. Unless, Charles raised an eyebrow, you're suggesting my judgment has become unreliable in my retirement. The room erupted in quiet chuckles, breaking the tension. Even Richard's lips twitched slightly. All in favor? Charles asked, one by one, hands raised. Dr. Mitchell, then Mrs. Rodriguez, then Dr. Adams. Finally, slowly, Richard Reed raised his hand. It's your show now, son, he said to Silas, his voice a complex mixture of resignation and pride. Don't make us regret this. The meeting adjourned, and people began filing out. Charles lingered, approaching Silas as he packed up his laptop. This girl, his grandfather said quietly, the one who helped you find your voice, she must be quite special. She is. Silas couldn't help smiling. She's working toward her own dream, actually, opening a cafe that's about more than just coffee, about creating community. Ah, Charles's eyes twinkled. So no wonder you understand the importance of personal connection so well. He patted Silas's shoulder. Bring her to dinner soon. I want to meet the woman who helped my grandson remember what this pharmacy was always meant to be about. After his grandfather left, Silas stood alone in the boardroom, letting reality sink in. They'd approved his plan. He could actually do this, actually create something that bridged the gap between tradition and innovation. He pulled out his phone to call Amara, but a text from her was already waiting. Whatever happened in there, I'm proud of you. Meet me at our spot when you're done. Their spot. The pier where they'd first shared their dreams, where they'd helped each other find courage, where everything had started to change. 20 minutes later, he found her there, looking out at the water. She turned at his approach, her eyes searching his face. Well? She asked softly. Instead of answering, he pulled her into a kiss, pouring all his joy and gratitude and love into it. When they finally parted, both breathless, he rested his forehead against hers. They said yes, he whispered. 3-month pilot program to start. Amara's squeal of delight echoed across the pier as she threw her arms around his neck. I knew it. I knew they'd see how amazing your vision is. It's because of you, he said, holding her close. You helped me find the courage to fight for what I believe in, to see that honoring tradition doesn't mean being trapped by it. No, She pulled back to look at him seriously. You did this. You took that leap of faith. You stood up there and showed them a future worth believing in. Speaking of futures worth believing in, he reached into his pocket, pulling out a small envelope. I got you something. Well, technically, my grandfather got you something, though he doesn't know it yet. Amara opened the envelope, her eyes widening as she read the check. Silas, this would cover all the startup costs for my competition entry, but I can't. It's not charity, he said quickly. It's an investment. My first official act as the newly empowered head of pharmacy modernization is to create a local business partnership fund. And I want the first investment to be in a cafe that understands the value of personal connection, of building community. Tears sparkled in her eyes. Are you sure? About the investment? Absolutely. About you. He brushed away a tear that had escaped down her cheek. More than I've ever been about anything. Amara looked at the check again, then at him, her smile brighter than the sun on the water. You know what this means? We're really doing this. Both of us. Our dreams. They're actually happening. Together, he added, pulling her close again. Together, she agreed, sealing the promise with a kiss. The breeze off the bay carried the scent of possibility, of futures unfolding, of dreams taking flight. And there on the pier where their story had truly begun, Silas and Amara held each other, knowing that some changes, some risks, some loves were worth every uncertain step along the way. The conference room of the Monterey Business Center hummed with nervous energy. Amara sat in the front row, her competition presentation ready on her tablet, watching as another contestant finished their pitch to the panel of judges. Her own turn was next. She felt Silas squeeze her hand and turned to find his reassuring smile. He'd taken the morning off from the pharmacy to be here, looking sharp in a charcoal suit that matched her own professional dress. The contrast between his calm presence and her jittery nerves almost made her laugh. The next presenter, announced the moderator, is Amara Knight, with her proposal for Haven and Hearth Cafe. Silas gave her hand one final squeeze. Show them what community really means, he whispered. Amara stood, smoothing her dress and approaching the podium with measured steps. As she connected her tablet to the projector, she caught sight of her reflection in the darkened screen, her natural curls styled professionally, her makeup subtle but polished, her posture straight and confident despite her racing heart. Good morning, she began, her voice clear and strong. Imagine walking into a cafe where you're not just another order number, where the barista knows your name, remembers your story, and creates drinks that aren't just beverages, but moments of connection. The judges, 5 local business leaders, watched with interest as she moved through her presentation. She shared market research, financial projections, and her vision for a space that would combine modern efficiency with genuine human warmth. And in today's increasingly automated world, she continued, thinking of the touchscreen that had replaced her at the daily grinds drive-through, people are craving authentic connection more than ever. Haven and Hearth won't just serve coffee. We'll create a sanctuary where community can flourish. The questions from the judges were direct and challenging. How will you compete with established chains? What makes your concept unique? Can you maintain profitability while prioritizing personal service? Amara answered each one with confidence, born from months of research and years of experience. When asked about funding, she outlined her investment partnership with Reed Pharmacy's community initiative, watching the judges' eyebrows raise with interest at the innovative collaboration. As she returned to her seat after the presentation, Silas's proud smile made her heart flutter. But before he could speak, his phone buzzed with an urgent message from the pharmacy. Go, she whispered, seeing his conflicted expression. I'll be fine. There are still 3 more presenters before the results. He kissed her cheek quickly. I'll be back as soon as I can. You were amazing. After he left, Amara tried to focus on the remaining presentations, but her mind kept wandering, to the weeks of preparation, to the late nights refining her business plan, to the mornings she'd spent practicing her pitch in front of Olivia, until every word felt natural. Her phone vibrated with a text from Silas. Emergency staff meeting. Some corporate changes being announced. Might be longer than expected. I'm so sorry. Don't worry about me, she texted back. Handle what you need to. The next hour crawled by. Finally, the judges returned from their deliberation. Amara sat up straighter, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. After careful consideration, the head judge began, we have selected our finalists. The following 3 entrepreneurs will move forward to the final round, where they will present expanded business plans in 2 weeks. Amara held her breath. James Morrison, with TechFit Solutions. Amara Knight, with Haven and Hearth Cafe. Daniel Weber, with Sustainable Seafood Supply. She barely heard the rest of the announcement. She was a finalist, one step closer to making her dream real. Reaching for her phone to tell Silas, she found another message from him. Need to talk. Can you come to the pharmacy when you're done? Something in his tone made her pause. The joy of her success dimmed slightly as she gathered her things and headed to her car. The pharmacy was quiet when she arrived, the afternoon lull in full effect. Linda looked up from the counter, her expression troubled. "He's in his office," she said softly. "Congratulations, by the way. Silas texted me about your presentation." "Thanks." Amara tried to smile, but anxiety was building in her chest. "Is everything okay?" Linda just shook her head slightly. Better let him explain. Silas's office door was closed. Unusual for him. When she knocked, his come-in sounded tired. He sat behind his desk, his earlier suit jacket discarded, sleeves rolled up, and tie loosened. Papers were scattered across his desk, and his expression was grim. "So what's wrong?" Amara asked, closing the door behind her. "Corporate pharmacy chain is trying to buy us out." The words came out flat, heavy. "They approached my father months ago. Apparently, he's been fighting it, but today they made an offer the board might not be able to refuse." Amara felt her stomach drop. "But your pilot program? The modernization plans?" "That's the thing." Silas ran a hand through his hair, a gesture she knew meant he was deeply frustrated. "The chain is interested because of my proposals. They want to implement similar programs across their locations. They're offering to keep me on as regional director of alternative medicine initiatives." That's good, right? But even as she said it, she knew it wasn't. It would mean selling our independence. Everything my grandfather built, everything we're trying to create, it would all become corporate property, standardized, automated. He looked up at her, his eyes pained, just like what happened at the daily grind. Amara moved around the desk, perching on its edge near him. "What does your father say?" "He's torn. The offer is significant, and some of the board members are near retirement age. A buyout would set them up well." Silas reached for her hand, interlacing their fingers. "But that's not even the worst part. What is?" "The regional director position. It would be based in Los Angeles." The words hung in the air between them, heavy with implication. Los Angeles. Hours away from Monterey, from her, from everything they'd been building. "Oh," was all she could manage. "I won't take it," he said quickly. "We'll find another way to fight this. Maybe if we can show the success of the pilot program quickly enough." "Silas," Amara squeezed his hand, forcing steadiness into her voice despite her churning emotions. "You need to consider all your options. Carefully. This is your family's legacy we're talking about. You're talking about your cafe's investment partner, pulling out before you even reach the final round." His voice was bitter. "About everything we've planned just falling apart." "Hey," she touched his face, making him look at her. "First of all, I made it to the finals, which I haven't even had a chance to tell you about because of all this." His expression softened slightly. "You did, Amara. That's wonderful. I'm so sorry I wasn't there. It's okay. But more importantly, we'll figure this out, together, just like we've figured everything else out." He pulled her into his arms, burying his face in her hair. "I can't lose this, any of it. The pharmacy, our plans, you." Amara held him tight, her own fears warring with her need to be strong for him. "You haven't lost anything yet. We haven't lost anything. We just have to get creative." They stayed like that for a long moment, drawing strength from each other. Finally, Silas pulled back slightly. "When do you need to submit your final business plan?" he asked. 2 weeks. The final presentation is the Friday after." "Okay," he nodded, determination replacing some of the defeat in his expression. "Then we have 2 weeks to prove that independent businesses can thrive. That personal connection matters more than corporate efficiency." "We?" Amara raised an eyebrow. "Your cafe vision and my pharmacy modernization plan are perfect examples of what gets lost in corporate buyouts. If we can demonstrate success, even early success, maybe we can convince the board that independence is worth fighting for." Hope flickered in Amara's chest, but caution tempered it. "That's a lot to prove in 2 weeks. Then we better get started." He stood, some of his usual confidence returning. "First step, I'm calling an emergency staff meeting. Everyone who believes in this vision needs to be all in, and I'll start reaching out to local suppliers, getting firm commitments for the cafe. Show the judges I'm not just talking about community support, I'm building it. They looked at each other, the weight of their challenges heavy but not crushing. Whatever came next, they would face it together. 2 weeks, Silas said softly. 2 weeks, Amara agreed, sealing the promise with a kiss that tasted of determination and hope and just a hint of fear. As she left the pharmacy, her mind was already racing with plans. Their dreams had never felt more possible or more precarious, but maybe that's what made them worth fighting for. The next 10 days passed in a blur of activity. Amara's apartment had become command central, its living room walls covered in charts, projections, and supplier agreements. Empty coffee cups littered every surface, none from the daily grind, as she'd finally quit to focus full-time on her dream. "These numbers are compelling," Silas said, studying the latest draft of her final presentation. He sat cross-legged on her floor, his usual professional attire replaced by jeans and a soft sweater. Dark circles under his eyes betrayed his own exhaustion. "The local supplier network you've built is impressive. Thanks to your grandfather," Amara replied, sorting through partnership letters. His introduction to the Monterey Business Association opened so many doors. Charles Reed had become their unexpected champion. After meeting Amara at a tense family dinner last week, he'd immediately recognized the parallel between her cafe vision and the original spirit of Reed Pharmacy. His support had proven invaluable, though even his influence might not be enough to stop the corporate buyout. Silas's phone buzzed, another message from the pharmacy chain's representatives. He ignored it, but Amara saw the tension return to his shoulders. "Any word from the board?" she asked gently. "They're meeting tomorrow." He ran a hand through his already disheveled hair. The pilot program is showing promise, but 2 weeks isn't enough time to prove long-term viability. And the corporate offer, he trailed off, the weight of unspoken worries filling the silence. Amara moved from her chair to sit beside him, taking his hand. "Tell me, they increased it significantly, and they're offering to keep all current staff, maintain our basic operating structure. On paper, it looks perfect." His fingers tightened around hers. "Except for the Los Angeles requirement." The words hung between them, heavy with implications. They'd been dancing around this issue, throwing themselves into work rather than facing the possibility of separation. "Have you considered?" Amara began. "Don't." His voice was rough. "Don't suggest I take it. Don't be practical or selfless or understanding. I can't." He turned to face her, his eyes intense. "I can't lose this. Us." "You're not losing me," she said firmly. "Whatever happens tomorrow, whatever you decide, that doesn't change, doesn't it? Long distance, different cities, corporate demands. How long before everything we've built just fades away?" Amara touched his face, making him meet her gaze. "Do you trust what we have?" "More than anything." "Then trust that we're strong enough to weather whatever comes. But right now we need to focus on creating options, not fears." He leaned into her touch, some of the tension easing from his frame. "When did you get so wise?" "Must be all that overpriced coffee I used to serve you," she teased, then grew serious. "Actually, it's because of you. You taught me that sometimes the scariest choices lead to the best outcomes." A knock at the door interrupted them. Olivia entered carrying takeout bags that smelled of garlic and spice. "Our dinner is served," she announced, "because I know neither of you has eaten anything but coffee and anxiety today." "You're a lifesaver," Amara said, making space on the coffee table. As they ate, Olivia updated them on the local business gossip she'd gathered while working at the daily grind. Corporates regretting that automated system, by the way. Customer complaints are up, and morning sales are down almost 20%. Silas perked up. Wait, what?" "Turns out people don't like talking to machines first thing in the morning," Olivia shrugged. "Who knew?" "That's it." Silas scrambled for his laptop. "Amara, where's your customer service impact analysis?" "Here, but what?" "Look." He pulled up his pharmacy data. "Our customer retention rate since starting the pilot program is up 12%. Small sample size, but significant. And your projected numbers for personal service impact at the cafe show a 30% increase in repeat customers compared to automated service models." Amara finished, catching his excitement. "But how does this help with the corporate buyout? Because it's not just about profits, it's about sustainability." His fingers flew over the keyboard. "If we can prove that independent, personally focused businesses actually perform better long-term than corporate models, We could convince the board that selling would be a mistake, Amara breathed. But we'd need more data. I can help, Olivia offered. I can get you detailed numbers on how the daily grinds automation has affected regular customers, and I know other local businesses that have resisted corporate buyouts. They worked late into the night, building a compelling case for independence. Olivia left around midnight, but Silas and Amara continued, driven by equal parts desperation and hope. At some point, Amara dozed off on the couch. She woke to find Silas draping a blanket over her, his touch gentle. "What time is it?" she mumbled. "Almost 3. He smiled softly. "Go back to sleep. Stay." The word came out before she could think better of it. "I mean, it's late, and you have the board meeting tomorrow." Instead of answering, he kicked off his shoes and settled beside her on the couch. Amara shifted to make room, ending up half-sprawled across his chest. His heartbeat under her ear was steady, comforting. "What if this doesn't work?" she whispered into the darkness. His arms tightened around her. "Then we'll try something else. And if that doesn't work, we'll try again, together. Promise?" "Promise." He kissed her forehead. "Get some sleep. Tomorrow's a big day for both of us." But sleep proved elusive. They lay there in comfortable silence, both lost in thoughts of what tomorrow might bring. Amara traced lazy patterns on Silas's chest, while his fingers played with her curls. "Tell me about our future," she said suddenly. "Can the one where everything works out?" She felt him smile against her hair. "Well, Reed Pharmacy becomes a model for modern independent pharmacies, combining traditional care with natural medicine, and just down the street, Haven and Hearth transforms into the heart of the community, where people come not just for amazing coffee, but for genuine connection. And us. We build something beautiful, something that proves that love and ambition aren't mutually exclusive. That dreams are better when they're shared." Amara lifted her head to look at him, finding his eyes in the dim light. "I love you," she said simply. "Whatever happens tomorrow, whatever comes next, I love you." The words had been building for weeks, but saying them now felt right, necessary, like planting a flag of defiance against all the forces threatening to pull them apart. Silas's breath caught. Then he was kissing her, deep and desperate and full of promise. When they parted, his voice was rough with emotion. "I love you too, God, Amara. I love you so much it terrifies me." She settled back against his chest, feeling strangely peaceful, despite the uncertainty ahead. They dozed fitfully, wrapped in each other's arms, until dawn began to paint the sky in shades of possibility. The morning would bring challenges, the board meeting that could change everything, final preparations for Amara's business competition, decisions that could reshape their futures. But for now, in the quiet hours before dawn, they held on to each other and the dreams they'd built together. Tomorrow would come soon enough. Tonight was for love, for hope, for the quiet certainty that some things were worth fighting for, no matter the odds. 6 months later, the morning fog rolled across Monterey Bay, wrapping the city in its familiar embrace. Outside a newly renovated storefront, a small crowd had gathered, their excited chatter mixing with the sound of waves in the distance. Amara stood behind the counter of Haven and Hearth, taking in every detail of her dream made real. Warm wood accents complemented exposed brick walls, while carefully chosen local art created an atmosphere of comfort and creativity. The espresso machine gleamed, ready for its first official use. "You ready?" Olivia asked, adjusting her apron, now emblazoned with the Haven and Hearth logo, a simple design featuring a coffee cup surrounded by healing herbs. Before Amara could answer, she felt familiar arms slip around her waist from behind. "She was born ready," Silas said, pressing a kiss to her temple. "Shouldn't you be next door getting your own place ready?" Amara teased, though she leaned back into his embrace. "Reed Wellness is all set." His voice held pride and contentment. "Dad's actually there early, arranging the natural supplements display. Never thought I'd see the day." The past 6 months had been a whirlwind of change and possibility. That crucial morning after their late-night revelation, Silas had presented their findings to the board. Not just pharmacy data, but a comprehensive analysis of how independent, community-focused businesses outperformed corporate models in long-term customer loyalty and sustainable growth. The deciding factor had come from an unexpected source: the Daily Grind's failed automation experiment. Their declining sales and customer complaints had provided perfect evidence of what happened when efficiency was prioritized over human connection. In the end, the board had not just rejected the corporate buyout, They'd unanimously approved an expansion of Silas's vision. Reed Pharmacy would become Reed Wellness, combining traditional pharmacy services with natural medicine and personalized care. And through a unique partnership program, they'd help support other local businesses committed to maintaining independence and community focus. Haven and Hearth had become their pilot partnership, with the cafe and wellness center sharing a renovated building in downtown Monterey. The arrangement allowed them to create something truly unique, a space where healing and community could flourish together. "'Ta 5 minutes until opening," Charles Reed's voice carried from the entrance, where he stood with Richard Reed and Linda, all wearing proud smiles. Amara turned in Silas's arms to face him. "Remember our first morning conversation? Through that drive-through window? Honey latte extra sweet," he smiled. "Just like the barista. Smooth talker." She straightened his tie. "Forest green, matching Haven and Hearth's color scheme. But look at us now." "Speaking of now," Silas stepped back slightly, his expression turning serious. "There's something I've been wanting to ask you." Amara's heart skipped. "Silas." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a key. "Move in with me," he said softly. "The apartment above the wellness center is finally renovated, and I can't think of anything better than waking up with you every morning. Not just meeting for coffee." Joy bubbled up in Amara's chest. "Are you sure? It's a big step." "I've never been more sure of anything." His eyes held hers, full of love and certainty. "Except maybe about how I feel about you." "Then yes," she beamed, taking the key. "Absolutely yes." Their kiss was interrupted by Olivia's playful groan. "Save it for after opening. Lovebirds. We've got customers waiting." Indeed, the crowd outside had grown. Amara recognized faces from the neighborhood, former regulars from the daily grind, patients from the pharmacy, local business owners who'd supported her journey, her community, their community. "All right, everyone," she called out, moving toward the doors. "Ready for the official opening of Haven and Hearth?" Cheers and applause answered her. As she unlocked the doors, Silas squeezed her hand one last time before heading next door to Reed Wellness. The morning rush was everything Amara had dreamed of and more. Each customer received personal attention, each drink was crafted with care, and the space quickly filled with conversation and laughter. The door connecting to Reed Wellness saw steady traffic as customers discovered the natural synergy between the two businesses. Around mid-morning, Amara looked up to find Silas in line, his eyes twinkling. "Welcome to Haven and Hearth," she said formally, fighting back a smile. "What can I get for you today?" "Honey latte, extra sweet," he replied. "And maybe a kiss from the owner if she's not too busy." "I'll see what I can do about that kiss." She began crafting his drink with practiced ease. "How's the wellness center?" "Amazing. Dad's actually getting excited about the herbal remedies section, and Linda's already booked several wellness consultations." His expression softened. "Jai, but mostly. I keep looking over here, seeing you living your dream and falling in love all over again." Amara handed him his latte, then leaned across the counter to kiss him softly. "Careful, Mr. Reed. Keep talking like that, and I might have to marry you someday. Promise." His voice was light, but his eyes held deeper meaning. She felt her heart expand with love and possibility. "Promise?" The rest of the day passed in a blur of customers, conversations, and countless perfect moments. As evening approached, both businesses closed for a private celebration. Their families and closest friends gathered in the cafe, sharing food, drinks, and stories. Charles Reed raised his mug, filled with Amara's special evening blend, and called for attention. To Haven and Hearth and Reed Wellness, to independence and innovation, to love that builds dreams and dreams that build community, and to honey lattes, Silas added, pulling Amara close, for bringing us together. Later that night, after the guests had gone and the cleanup was done, Amara and Silas stood in their shared space. Through the windows, they could see the bay painted in sunset colors, the same view that had witnessed their first real conversation about dreams and courage. "Happy?" Silas asked, though he already knew the answer. "More than I ever imagined possible." Amara leaned into him, breathing in the familiar scent of sandalwood and belonging. "You know what I realized today?" "What's that?" "Some people spend their whole lives choosing between love and ambition, between personal happiness and professional dreams." She looked up at him, her heart full. "But we found a way to have both, to make them stronger together. That's because you taught me something important," he said, brushing a curl from her face, "that the best dreams aren't the ones we plan carefully and protect fearfully. They're the ones we're brave enough to share, to grow, to let love into." Look who's getting philosophical, she teased, then grew serious. I love you, Silas Reed. Thank you for believing in my dreams, and for letting me be part of yours. I love you too, Amara Knight. He kissed her softly, tasting of honey and promise. More than coffee, more than wellness plans, more than anything, they locked up together, their movements in perfect sync after months of practice. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, new chances to grow their shared vision. But tonight, in the gentle fog of Monterey, they walked home hand in hand, their hearts as full as their dreams. Some might call it destiny, how a simple drive-through window had led to this. But Amara and Silas knew it was more than that. It was about being brave enough to want impossible things, wise enough to recognize love when it appeared, and strong enough to build dreams that could hold both. And it all started with a honey latte, served with a smile at exactly 7:30 in the morning. The end. 2 years later, the morning sunlight streamed through the windows of Haven and Hearth, catching the simple gold band on Amara's finger as she prepared a honey latte with practiced grace. The cafe had evolved beautifully, its walls now adorned with photos of community events and milestones, the first anniversary celebration, charity fundraisers, local art shows, and tucked in a special corner, a candid shot from her wedding day 6 months ago. Special delivery, Silas called out, entering through the connecting door from Reed Wellness. He carried a small potted herb garden, lavender, mint, and chamomile, all grown in their rooftop garden. Another successful collaboration between the cafe and wellness center. Just in time, Amara smiled, accepting both the herbs and his good morning kiss. The new seasonal menu launches today. Their businesses had flourished beyond expectations. Reed Wellness had become a model for modern independent pharmacies, with other family-owned stores across the state, seeking their guidance on integrating traditional and natural medicine. Haven and Hearth had earned recognition as one of California's most innovative small businesses, proving that personal connection could coexist with success. But their greatest achievement wasn't measured in profits or awards. It was in the community they'd built together, a space where people found healing for body and soul, where every cup of coffee came with a moment of genuine connection, where dreams could take root and grow. Ready for the staff meeting? Silas asked, checking his watch. Dad's bringing those proposal sketches. The sketches were for their newest venture, expanding into the building next door. The plan included a community event space, cooking classes focused on healing foods, and wellness workshops. It was ambitious, but they'd learned that the best dreams usually were. Almost ready, Amara said, finishing one last drink. She handed the honey latte to their newest barista, then untied her apron. Just like old times, isn't it? Though I seem to remember you being on the other side of the counter. Best coffee stop I ever made, Silas grinned, pulling her close. Changed my whole life. Mine too. She kissed him softly, tasting traces of his morning coffee. And we're just getting started. Together they headed to the meeting room, ready to write the next chapter of their story. Outside, the Monterey fog was lifting, revealing a day full of promise. Much like that morning 2 years ago, when a simple honey latte had set their destiny in motion. Some things had changed. The drive-through window that first brought them together was now a cozy reading nook, and their morning conversations happened over breakfast in their shared apartment. But the most important things remained the same: their commitment to their dreams, their dedication to their community, and most of all, their love that made everything possible. After all, the best beginnings often start with something sweet, like honey and coffee, served with love, at exactly the right moment. The end. Thinking about Amara and Silas, journey of love and ambition, what would you choose if you faced their dilemma? Would you follow the safe corporate path, with guaranteed success but the possibility of heartbreak? Or would you risk everything to fight for both your professional dreams and true love? Sometimes the greatest challenges lead to the most beautiful destinations. Just as a simple latte at 7:30 in the morning changed Amara and Silas lives forever. What dream are you afraid to pursue? What is your latte moment that is waiting to happen? Your participation in the channel is very important. Please leave your opinion in the comments. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and comment your thoughts. Your participation is very important to us. See you next time.